My wife cheated, but my mom defended her. It's just a mistake. Don't ruin the family. I cut them both off. Now mom's in the hospital begging to mend bridges. When I found out what Rachel had done, I expected a lot of things. I expected pain. I expected anger. I expected the divorce process to be ugly. What I did not expect was for my mother to look at my wife's betrayal and tell me it was just a mistake. I did not expect her to tell me not to ruin the family. I did not expect her to defend the woman who had brought another man into my bed. But that was exactly what happened. I cut them both off. 8 months later, my mother ended up in the hospital after a serious heart attack. Suddenly, she wanted to mend bridges before it was too late. Suddenly, she wanted to apologize. Suddenly, everyone wanted me to remember that she was still my mother. And the hardest part was, they were right. She was still my mother. So now I had to figure out whether that still meant anything after everything she had done. I am 35 years old. I work as a civil engineer at a mid-sized firm, where I have spent the last decade slowly working my way up. My job is not glamorous. I design commercial buildings, infrastructure plans, drainage plans, structural details, all the things that make most people's eyes glaze over at dinner. But it pays well, it keeps me busy, and it gives me a stable life. Before everything blew up, I had what I thought was a solid foundation. I had no debt, I had a healthy retirement account. I owned my house outright because my grandfather left me some money when he passed, and I used it to pay off the mortgage early. I was not rich, but I was stable, careful, and proud of what I had built. My wife Rachel was 33. She worked as an office manager at a dental practice. We had been married for 7 years and together for 9. We met through mutual friends, at a barbecue, dated for 2 years, and then I proposed. There was no dramatic love-at-first-sight story, no movie scene, no thunderbolt. We were just two people who got along well and decided to build a life together. For the first few years, it really did feel solid. We bought the house, fixed it up one room at a time, hosted family dinners, and took vacations to places like Branson and Pigeon Forge. Boring places maybe, but they were our kind of boring. Rachel wanted kids eventually, but we had agreed to wait until we felt more financially secure. Looking back, maybe I should have paid more attention to how different our ideas of financially secure were. I was always focused on saving, investing, paying things off early, planning for the future. Rachel liked the idea of stability, but she did not seem as motivated to build it. She always wanted the next upgrade, the next renovation, the next pretty thing she had seen online. We spent weekends at Home Depot picking out tiles, paint colors, light fixtures, and cabinet pulls. I would come home after a long day and find that Rachel had rearranged the living room furniture again because she had seen some new design trend on social media. The kitchen remodel took us 3 months. I did most of the work myself on weekends, installing cabinets and countertops, while she picked decorative hardware that cost twice as much as the basic functional options. Money was always a point of friction, though I did not see it as a warning sign at the time. I would suggest putting extra money into retirement. She would want to upgrade the guest bathroom that nobody used. I would propose a modest vacation. She would find a resort that cost 3 times what I had budgeted. We always compromised, which usually meant I agreed to spend more than I wanted because it was easier than fighting. My mother Linda was 64, and she adored Rachel from the beginning. She treated Rachel like the daughter she never had. She took her shopping, invited her to lunches, called her just to talk about recipes, home decor, and family gossip. At first, I thought it was nice. My mother had always been intense, and having Rachel around seemed to redirect some of that energy away from me. Mom had always had opinions about everything I did. In college, she called twice a week to make sure I was eating properly and going to class. When I bought my first car, she lectured me for an hour about maintenance schedules. When I got my engineering degree, she said I should have gone into medicine instead. She loved me, but she loved through control commentary and constant involvement. Rachel became her new project. At first, I was grateful for that. I thought maybe it would balance things out. Instead, it created something worse. There was always this strange dynamic where my mother sided with Rachel on almost everything. If Rachel and I disagreed about money, Mom would call and tell me I was being too controlling. If Rachel complained that I worked too late, Mom would lecture me about priorities. If Rachel wanted something and I hesitated, Mom would act like I was neglecting my wife. Over time, it became a 2-against-1 situation, but I mostly ignored it. I told myself that families were messy. I told myself my mother just loved Rachel. I told myself it was better than constant conflict between in-laws. My younger brother Derek was 30. He lived about 2 hours away with his wife Michelle and their 2 kids. We were not extremely close. Growing up, Derek had always been the golden child. He could do no wrong in Mom's eyes. Still, we got along fine at family gatherings. It was cordial. It worked. Then, everything exploded on a random Tuesday evening in March. I had been working late, trying to finish calculations for a project deadline. I got home around 8, expecting Rachel to be on the couch watching one of her reality shows. Instead, the house was dark, except for the light in our bedroom. I figured she had gone to bed early. I walked into the bedroom, and there they were. Rachel and a man I had never seen before were in my bed, both scrambling to cover themselves with the sheets. The look on Rachel's face told me everything before anyone said a word. It was pure panic mixed with guilt. The kind of expression that does not need translation. For a few seconds, the whole scene felt unreal, like I was watching someone else's life collapse from outside my own body. My brain started processing details in a cold, detached way. The expensive watch sitting on my nightstand, Rachel's clothes scattered across the floor I had vacuumed that weekend, the smell of cologne I did not recognize, the sheets we had picked out together at Target 6 months earlier, now wrapped around another man. The guy pulled the sheet higher to cover his chest, as if modesty mattered anymore. Rachel was frozen, with her mouth open, but no sound came out. Nobody moved for maybe 5 seconds. It felt like someone had paused the worst movie ever made. Then Rachel finally found her voice. "This isn't what it looks like." I laughed. I could not help it. "It looks like my wife is in bed with another man in my house. In my bed. What else could it possibly look like?" The guy's name turned out to be Kyle. He was a pharmaceutical sales representative who had been calling on Rachel's dental office for about 6 months. He started getting dressed with frantic urgency. He had that smooth talker look, the nice car in my driveway, the expensive watch on my nightstand, the kind of guy who probably had a memorized pickup routine that worked on bored office managers looking for something more exciting than their stable, boring husbands. "Look, man, I'm sorry," Kyle started. "Get out of my house." He did not need to be told twice. He grabbed his shoes and practically ran out of the bedroom. About 30 seconds later, I heard the front door slam. Then his car peeled out of my driveway fast enough to leave rubber on the concrete. I had pressure washed the month before. Rachel was crying by then, sitting in bed with the sheet pulled up to her neck. "Please," she said, "let me explain." I did not yell. I did not throw anything. I did not punch the wall or do any dramatic nonsense people imagine in moments like that. I just stood there for maybe 20 seconds letting the reality sink in, while she tried to find words that could somehow make it okay. There were no words, so I turned around and walked out. I grabbed my laptop and work bag from the home office. I unplugged my phone charger from the kitchen. I took my truck keys from the hook by the door, and I left. Rachel called after me. Then I heard her running down the hallway, but I kept walking. She appeared at the front door in a bathrobe just as I was climbing into my truck. "Where are you going? We need to talk about this." I started the engine. She ran toward the truck in bare feet. "Please don't leave like this. Let me explain." I backed out of the driveway while she stood there crying in the bathrobe I had bought her for Christmas. I drove away without looking back, my hands steady on the wheel, even though my entire world had just collapsed. I drove to my friend James's house. James and his wife Amy put me up in their guest room with no drama. James asked one question. "You good, man?" I told him what happened. He nodded, handed me the guest room key, and that was it. James and I had been friends since college. We worked together at my first engineering job before he moved to a different firm. He was the kind of friend who helped you move without complaining and showed up with tools when you mentioned a project. Amy was just as solid. She appeared with fresh towels and told me I could stay as long as I needed. That night, I lay in their guest bed, staring at the ceiling, while my phone buzzed over and over again. Rachel texted every few minutes. At first, the messages were desperate and apologetic. Please come home. We need to talk. I'm so sorry. It was a huge mistake. He means nothing to me. You're the only one I love. Please answer me. I can't lose you. This is killing me. I read every message. I answered none of them. What was there to say? She had made her choice when she brought another man into our bed. Around midnight, she changed tactics. She started sending long paragraphs about how our marriage had been struggling, how she felt neglected because I worked so much, how Kyle had been there at the right time when she felt vulnerable. It was classic blame shifting. Somehow, my working to provide for us had caused her to sleep with someone else. By morning, I had 17 more messages and 9 missed calls. Rachel had moved from apologetic to angry. The least you could do is respond. I'm your wife. You can't just ignore me forever. Actually, I could. Watch me. The second night at James's place, I sat at his kitchen table and started making a list. Not an emotional list, a practical one. Assets, accounts, timeline, next steps. That is how my brain works. When everything falls apart, I focus on the parts I can control. The house had been purchased before marriage with inheritance money, so it should be mine. My truck was mine before marriage. Her sedan was joint. My retirement accounts were mostly contributions from before we met, with some growth during the marriage. Our joint savings had about $30,000 that would need to be split. My wedding ring was mine to keep even if the marriage was over. I filled 3 pages in a notebook with calculations, asset lists, and action items. James found me at the kitchen table at 2 in the morning with spreadsheets and legal pad notes spread everywhere. You know lawyers can handle most of this, right? He said. I know, but I need to understand every detail before I walk into that office. You can't protect what you don't know you have. He grabbed 2 drinks from the fridge and sat down. Want to talk about what you're feeling? Not particularly. Fair enough. Want help organizing that mess? We spent the next hour categorizing everything. James had been through a rough breakup years before and understood the value of documentation. By 3 in the morning, I had a clear picture of what was mine, what was ours, and what I could walk away from. The next morning, I called a lawyer. A colleague recommended a divorce attorney named Patricia. She was sharp, direct, and did not waste time with emotional hand-holding. That was exactly what I needed. During our first meeting, she asked, "Do you want to try to save the marriage?" "No," I said. "I want a clean divorce, a fair split of marital assets, and I want it done quickly." She nodded. "That makes my job easier. Let's talk about what you own." We went through everything. The house had been purchased before marriage using my inheritance. It was not marital property. My retirement accounts were mostly pre-marriage contributions, with some growth during the marriage. The only real joint assets were the savings account and Rachel's car, which we had bought together 3 years earlier. Patricia laid it out clearly. The savings get split 50-50. The car depends on whose name is on the title. Everything else you brought into the marriage stays yours. The car was in both our names, so that would need to be handled. Fine, I could split one car and $15,000 from savings. That was a small price to pay for a clean exit. I stayed at James's place for 3 days, not responding to Rachel's increasingly frantic texts and calls. She went through the entire emotional spectrum. Apologies, justifications, anger, bargaining, more apologies. I read everything and answered nothing. On day 4, my mother called. "Sweetheart," she said, "Rachel told me what happened. You need to come home and work this out." "Not happening, Mom." Don't be dramatic. Couples go through rough patches. You can't just throw away 7 years over one mistake. That word hit me harder than I expected. Mistake. Like Rachel had accidentally bought the wrong milk at the grocery store. Like she had tripped and fallen into another man in our bed. It wasn't a mistake, Mom. Mistakes are accidental. This was a choice. She's devastated. She made a stupid decision, but she loves you. You need to forgive her and move past this. I kept my voice level. I'm filing for divorce. I'll be in touch about picking up my things from the house. You're making a huge mistake. Marriage requires forgiveness. Your father and I had problems too, but we worked through them. Dad cheated on you. There was silence. No, she said finally, but we had our issues. You're being stubborn and prideful. Rachel deserves another chance. She had 7 years of chances not to sleep with someone else. She blew it. I'm done with this conversation. I hung up. Mom called back 4 times. I did not answer. 2 days later, I went to the house with James to pack my things. Rachel was at work. I had confirmed her schedule before going because I did not want a scene. I took my clothes, my tools, my personal items, and my grandfather's antique clock from the mantel. I left everything else. It took about 3 hours to load my truck and James's truck. As we were finishing, Rachel's car pulled into the driveway. She rushed inside, eyes red from crying. "Please," she said, "can we just talk about this?" "There's nothing to talk about. My lawyer will be in touch." I made a terrible mistake. It meant nothing. I'll do anything to fix this. James, bless him, stepped between us. "Man said he's done," he told her. "Let him get his stuff and go." Rachel turned on him. "This is between us. You don't understand what we have." Had I corrected from behind James? What we had. Past tense. I walked out to my truck, loaded the last box, and drove away. I did not look back. The real nightmare started when my mother decided to launch a full campaign to save my marriage. She called daily and left long voicemails about forgiveness, family values, and how cruel I was being. When I stopped answering, she started showing up at my office. My boss was understanding, thankfully, and after the second incident, security escorted her out. Then she recruited Derek. My brother called me on a Saturday morning. "Dude, you need to cut Mom some slack. She's just worried about you." She's not worried about me. She's worried about Rachel. Same thing. Rachel is family too. Not anymore. She's not. Come on, man. People make mistakes. You're really going to throw everything away over this? There it was again. That word. Mistake. Derek, let me ask you something. If Michelle cheated on you, would you take her back? There was a long pause. That's different. How? Michelle wouldn't do that. Neither would Rachel, apparently. Until she did. I'm done with this conversation. He called back. I did not answer. Then he texted me. "You're being selfish. Think about how this affects the family." I blocked his number. The divorce moved forward. Patricia was efficient and ruthless, in the best possible way. Rachel's lawyer trying to argue that Rachel deserved more because she had contributed to the household. But Patricia shut that down with financial records showing I had paid about 70% of all bills during the marriage. Rachel contested almost nothing, except one thing. She wanted to keep living in the house. She said she could not afford to find another place right away and needed time. Absolutely not, I told Patricia. She can move in with her parents or her boyfriend or wherever. She is not staying in my house. Patricia smiled. That's what I thought you'd say. I'll file for immediate possession. The judge sided with me. The house had been mine before marriage. I had paid the mortgage with inheritance money. Rachel had no legal claim to it. She had 30 days to vacate. During that time, my mother got worse. She wrote me a 5-page letter about disappointment, family loyalty, and how I was making the biggest mistake of my life. She showed up at church, a place I had not attended in years, but had recently started going to with James's family. She made a scene in the parking lot before the pastor gently asked her to leave. Then she contacted my boss. She tried to explain that I was going through a difficult time and might need support and understanding. My boss called me into his office, looking deeply uncomfortable. "Your mother reached out to me. I'm sorry," I said. "I'll make sure it doesn't happen again. She seems very concerned about your personal life." "She's concerned about the wrong person's personal life. It won't affect my work." He nodded. "I know it won't. You're one of my best engineers." "I just wanted you to know she contacted me." That night, I called my mother for the first time in weeks. "You contacted my boss? Are you out of your mind? Someone needs to make you see reason. You're destroying your life." "No, Mom. Rachel destroyed my marriage when she slept with someone else. I'm just cleaning up the mess. And if you ever contact my employer again, I will get a restraining order. Do you understand me?" "You wouldn't dare. Try me." I hung up and blocked her number too. The divorce was finalized after 4 months. Rachel got half the savings account, her car, and whatever personal items she had taken from the house. I kept the house, my truck, my retirement accounts, and my sanity. Rachel moved in with Kyle, the pharmaceutical rep. Through mutual friends, I later heard she had been seeing him for 6 months before I caught them. 6 months of lies, 6 months of sneaking around, 6 months of looking me in the eye while I worked late to provide for us. By the time I heard that the anger had mostly faded, what replaced it was something closer to relief. I had dodged a bigger bullet by catching them when I did. My mother continued her campaign through Derek, through mutual family friends, and through people at church. The message was always the same. I was throwing away family over pride. I was being unforgiving. I was going to regret it someday. So I changed my number. I moved to a different church. I told mutual friends clearly that any attempt to pass messages from Mom or Rachel would end our friendship. Most people respected that. The ones who did not got cut off too. James and Amy became my main support system. They never questioned my decisions. They never tried to mediate. They just let me exist without judgment. James helped me repaint the bedroom because I could not stand looking at those walls anymore. Amy helped me pick out new furniture to replace the things Rachel had taken. "You're rebuilding," she told me while we assembled a new bed frame. "That's healthy." So I rebuilt. I focused on work. I took on extra projects. I stayed late. I threw myself into calculations, drawings, project schedules, and design reviews. I got promoted to senior engineer after successfully completing a major commercial complex project. The raise was substantial enough that I could max out my retirement contributions and still have plenty left over. I started going to the gym with James. I lost 15 pounds, gained muscle, and felt better physically than I had in years. It turns out that when you are not spending every evening on the couch watching reality TV you do not care about, you have time for self-improvement. I joined a recreational softball league. I made new friends who knew nothing about my divorce drama. I showed up, played ball, grabbed food afterward, and enjoyed simple, drama-free socializing. 6 months after the divorce, I went on my first date. I met Sarah through softball. She played on the women's team that practiced after ours. She was an engineer too, but at a different firm. One night after practice, we grabbed coffee and talked about work, sports, and nothing heavy. On our third date, I decided to be honest. Full disclosure, I told her. I got divorced this year. My wife cheated. It has been finalized for a few months, but I wanted you to know. Sarah nodded. I appreciate the honesty. I got divorced 2 years ago. Different reasons, but I get it. Are you over it? Getting there. Some days are better than others. That's fair. We took things slow. Sarah had her own place, her own career, her own life. She did not need me to fix anything. She did not need me to provide everything. She just wanted decent company, honesty, and respect. It was refreshing. Of course, my mother eventually heard about Sarah through the family grapevine. Derek's wife Michelle saw us at a restaurant and reported back. That was when Mom started trying to reach me again through Derek and Michelle. The messages came through Michelle's Facebook. "Your mom really wants to talk to you. She misses you. Family is forever. She's not doing well." I ignored every single message. Then, 8 months after I had walked away from both Mom and Rachel, Derek called James. James knocked on my door one Wednesday evening. Derek called me, he said. "Your mom's in the hospital." My stomach dropped before I could stop it. What happened? Heart attack. She's stable now, but it was serious. Derek thinks you should know. I sat down on my couch and tried to process it. Part of me wanted to feel nothing. After everything she had done, after choosing Rachel over her own son, after harassing me at work and trying to manipulate everyone around me, why should I care? But she was still my mother. She was the woman who had raised me, the woman who had been there for every childhood injury and every success. She taught me to ride a bike. She taught me how to balance a checkbook. She cried at my college graduation. She also told me I was wrong for walking away from a woman who cheated on me. Both things were true. "Did he say anything else?" I asked. "Just that she's asking for you. She wants to talk before—" James paused. He didn't say it directly, but reading between the lines, she might not have much time. "They're doing tests to see how much damage there was." I stared down at my hands. She chose Rachel over me. She told me I was wrong for not forgiving someone who cheated on me. She harassed me at work. She tried to pressure me through everyone around me. I know, man, James said. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just passing along the message. Did Derek say how bad it is? They're talking about bypass surgery. She's on a waiting list. The doctors are concerned about another attack before they can operate. That night, I could not sleep. My mind kept jumping between memories. Mom teaching me her spaghetti sauce recipe. Mom crying when I graduated college. Mom telling me Rachel was perfect for me when we first started dating. Mom telling me I was destroying my family because I refused to forgive betrayal. The next morning, I called Michelle. How bad is it really? Her voice was soft. The doctors are saying that if the surgery goes well, she could have years left, but she needs serious lifestyle changes and less stress. The attack was severe. They're monitoring her closely. Derek said she wants to talk to me. She does. She has been asking for you since she woke up. She says she needs to mend bridges before it's too late. There it was. Mend bridges. Like our relationship had suffered a minor structural crack instead of being actively demolished. I'll think about it, I said. She's your mother. Whatever happened between you, she loves you. She had a funny way of showing it. I hung up and called Patricia. By then, my divorce lawyer had become something like a trusted advisor. She had seen enough of the mess to understand the people involved. I need a reality check, I told her. My mom is in the hospital after a heart attack. She wants to mend bridges before possible surgery. After everything she did do, I owe her a visit. Patricia was quiet for a moment. Legally, no. You don't owe anyone anything. Morally, that's above my pay grade. But I'll tell you what I tell all my clients going through family drama. You have to live with your decisions. Can you live with not seeing her if something happens? Can you live with seeing her and getting pulled back into manipulation? Only you know the answer. That weekend, I drove to the hospital. I did not tell anyone I was coming. I just showed up during visiting hours and asked for Linda's room. When I saw her, she looked smaller somehow. All the fire and fight I remembered seemed gone, replaced by a fragile woman in a hospital gown hooked up to monitors. Her face lit up when she saw me. You came. I sat in the chair near her bed, keeping a little distance between us. Michelle said you wanted to talk? Mom took a shaky breath. I've had a lot of time to think, lying here. About priorities. About what matters. I'm sorry for how I handled things with Rachel. I waited. Years of engineering work had taught me patience. Sometimes you have to let people finish explaining the problem before you can assess the solution. I thought I was helping, she continued. I thought if I could just get you two to reconcile, everything would go back to normal. I didn't want to see the family break apart. So you took her side and made me the bad guy for having boundaries. I wasn't trying to make you the bad guy. I just thought... She stopped and closed her eyes. I thought if I pushed hard enough, you would forgive her and we could all move forward. I didn't understand why you wouldn't just work through it. Because she betrayed me, Mom. For 6 months, she lied to me every single day while sleeping with someone else. That is not something you work through. That is something you walk away from. I see that now. I really do. Tears started rolling down her cheeks. I made everything worse. I pushed you away when you needed support. I chose the wrong person. I did not respond right away. Part of me wanted to stand up and leave. I wanted her to sit with the consequences of her choices the way I had been forced to sit with Rachel's betrayal. But another part of me saw something I had not seen from her before. Remorse. Not defensiveness, not guilt-tripping, not manipulation dressed up as concern. Actual remorse. Why, I finally ask, why did you fight so hard for her instead of me? Mom wiped her eyes with a tissue. I loved Rachel like a daughter. When she called me crying and said she made a mistake and you wouldn't forgive her, I wanted to fix it. I wanted my family intact. I didn't think about what you were going through. I only thought about what I was losing. You weren't losing anything. I was the one who lost something. I know that now. Being here thinking I might die without making this right, it puts things in perspective. She reached toward me, but did not quite touch me. I'm sorry I wasn't the mother you needed during the worst time of your life. I'm sorry I prioritized my feelings over yours. I'm sorry I tried to manipulate you into doing what I wanted instead of supporting your decision. The apology sounded genuine, but I had been burned before by people who said exactly what they thought I wanted to hear. "Where's Rachel now?" I asked. "I don't know. I haven't talked to her in months." That surprised me. "What happened after you got divorced?" I kept expecting her to come around, but she just disappeared. She stopped returning calls. Derek ran into her at a store once. "She's still with that man. She didn't even ask about you." "Good," I said. "I hope they're very happy together." Mom looked at me carefully. "You mean that, don't you? You're really over it." "I've been over it for months, Mom. I moved on with my life. I got promoted at work. I made new friends. I started dating someone who treats me with respect. The divorce was the best thing that could have happened to me." "Derek mentioned you're seeing someone." "Sarah. She's an engineer. We have a lot in common." "Is it serious?" "It's good. We're taking our time." Mom nodded slowly. "I want to meet her someday. If you'll let me. If you can forgive me enough to let me back into your life." And there it was. The question I had been wrestling with since James told me she was in the hospital. Could I let her back in? Should I? "I don't know if I can forgive you yet," I said honestly. "You really hurt me. It wasn't just taking Rachel's side. It was all of it. Showing up at my work, harassing my boss, trying to manipulate everyone around me into pressuring me. You made one of the worst times of my life even harder." "I know. I'm so sorry." "Sorry is not enough right now. I need to see that things are different. I need to see that you actually understand why what you did was wrong." "I do understand. I swear I do." "Okay," I said. "Then here's what needs to happen if you want me back in your life." I leaned forward so she could hear every word. "First, you acknowledge that I made the right decision divorcing Rachel. Not just that you were sorry for how you acted. You need to actually agree with my choice." Mom hesitated, then nodded. "You made the right choice. She betrayed you. You deserved better. Second, you accept that Sarah is in my life now, and you will treat her with respect. No comparing her to Rachel. No comments about moving too fast. No interference. I promise. Third, Derek does not get to be your messenger anymore. If you want to talk to me, you talk to me directly, like an adult. No more using other people to guilt trip me. Agree." And fourth, this is non-negotiable. If you ever try to manipulate me or the people in my life again, I am done. Permanently. No second chances. I will walk away and never look back. Her eyes filled with tears again, but she nodded. "I understand. I won't let you down again. We'll see." I stayed for another 20 minutes, making awkward small talk about her doctors and her recovery plan. When visiting hours ended, I stood to leave. "Will you come back?" she asked. "Maybe. Let's see how the surgery goes and take it from there." I left the hospital feeling strange. Not good exactly, but not as heavy as I had felt walking in. My mother's apology seemed genuine, but I needed to see whether her actions matched her words before I let my guard down. I called James on the drive home. I saw Mom. She apologized. She actually seemed to mean it. "How do you feel about that?" "Conflicted. Part of me wants to believe her. Another part remembers how she treated me and thinks this could just be another manipulation." "Give it time," James said. "See if she follows through. People can change, but they have to prove it." "Yeah," I said. "That's the plan." The next few weeks were strange. Mom went through bypass surgery successfully. I sent flowers but did not visit. I was not ready for that yet. She texted me a thank you message that was brief and respectful. Not pushy, not guilt-tripping. That was a small improvement. Derek called to update me on her recovery, and for the first time in months, we had a normal conversation without him lecturing me about family obligations. "She's doing better," he said. "Doctor says she needs to take it easy for a while and make lifestyle changes. She's been asking about you." "I'm not ready for regular visits yet." "She understands. She told me to tell you." He paused. "Actually, she told me not to play messenger anymore. Said she'll text you herself when she's ready." "Good." "Look, man, Derek said I'm sorry for how I acted during your divorce. Mom had me convinced you were being unreasonable. I should have supported you instead of ganging up on you." His apology caught me off guard. "Thanks for saying that." Sarah seems cool from what I've heard. Maybe we could all grab food sometime. Me, Michelle, you, and Sarah? Maybe eventually. Let's take it slow. Fair enough. A month after the surgery, Mom asked if I would come to Sunday dinner. Just me, not Sarah yet. She said she did not want to overwhelm anyone. I agreed, mostly because I wanted to see whether she had actually changed, or whether this was just temporary, hospital-induced remorse. She had lost weight. She moved slower. She looked tired. But when she saw me, she smiled and hugged me, carefully mindful of her healing sternum. "Thank you for coming," she said. Dinner was awkward at first. We had spent so many months not speaking that conversation felt stiff and unnatural. But gradually, we found a rhythm again. She asked about work, she asked about my projects, she asked about Sarah. She did not pry, she did not judge, she just listened. "She sounds wonderful," Mom said. "I'd like to meet her when you're ready." "I'll think about it." Toward the end of dinner, Mom set down her fork and looked at me seriously. "I've been seeing a counselor," she said, "someone who specializes in family dynamics. She has helped me understand that I was wrong. Not just about how I acted, but about the fundamental situation. You were the victim, and I made you feel like the villain." I did not know what to say to that. "I'm working on being better," she continued. "Not just for you, but for myself. I need to learn to respect boundaries and let people make their own choices without trying to control everything." "That's good, Mom. I'm glad you're getting help. I know I can't undo what I did, but I'm hoping eventually you might let me be part of your life again. Not like before. I don't expect things to go back to exactly how they were. Maybe we can build something new, something healthier." I thought about it. "Maybe we can," I said. "But it's going to take time." "I understand. I'll wait as long as it takes." 3 months after surgery, Mom seemed genuinely different. She texted occasionally, but never pushed for responses. She sent birthday cards without long, guilt-inducing notes. She respected my boundaries when I said I was not ready for family gatherings yet. 4 months after her surgery, Sarah and I went to dinner at Mom's house for the first time. I was nervous and ready to shut down any drama immediately. But Mom was gracious and kind. She asked Sarah about her work, her family, and her interests. No comparisons to Rachel, no inappropriate questions, no comments about the past. Just genuine interest in getting to know the woman I was dating. After dinner, while Sarah was using the restroom, Mom pulled me aside. "She's lovely," she said. "I can see why you're happy." "Thanks, Mom. I'm proud of you for knowing what you deserved and not settling for less. I should have told you that from the beginning." That meant something. The weight I had been carrying since she chose Rachel over me lightened a little. 6 months after the hospital visit, Derek, Michelle, Mom, Sarah, and I all had dinner together. It was the first time the family had been in the same room since before my divorce. And somehow, it was surprisingly normal. No one mentioned Rachel. No one brought up the past. We just shared a meal and conversation like functional people. "This is nice," Sarah whispered while we loaded the dishwasher after dinner. "Your family seems great." "They're getting there," I said. "Still a work in progress, but better than before." That is where things stand now. Mom and I talk regularly, but there is still a guardedness on my part that may never fully go away. Trust once broken does not heal completely. But we are rebuilding something that works for both of us. Derek and I are brothers again. Not as close as we might have been if he had supported me from the start, but close enough to grab food occasionally and text about sports. Sarah and I are talking about moving in together. We are taking our time, doing it right, making sure we are both ready. She has met my friends, I have met her family. Everything feels solid. In a way, my marriage to Rachel never did. I saw Rachel once, about 7 months after the divorce. She was at a restaurant with Kyle looking miserable, despite the fancy setting. She saw me with Sarah, and I watched her expression move from recognition to regret to forced indifference. I nodded politely and kept walking. Whatever she was dealing with was not my problem anymore. Some people would say I should have stayed no contact with Mom permanently. They would say her hospital apology was just manipulation. They would say she might revert to her old patterns eventually. Maybe they are right. Maybe I am setting myself up for disappointment. But here is what I know. Holding on to anger and cutting people off forever felt righteous in the moment, but over time, it was exhausting. Not because I missed the harassment or the interference. I did not miss that at all. I missed having a mother. The hospital scare made me realize that people are imperfect, and sometimes they need a serious wake-up call to understand how badly they have messed up. Could my mother backslide? Absolutely. Do I still have my guard up? Completely. But she has shown real change over a sustained period of time. She has respected my boundaries. She has put in the work to understand where she went wrong. That is more than most people in her position would do. As for Rachel, I heard through mutual friends that she and Kyle broke up after about 8 months. Apparently, the excitement of an affair does not translate well into actual relationship work. She tried to reach out to me once with some rambling text about mistakes and regret. I deleted it without responding. That chapter is closed, sealed, buried.